That's why if you're Buddhist, strict Buddhists don't eat garlic and onion because those are medicinal. So they have medicinal properties, and if you eat them every day, then you stop the actual, if you actually got sick, it would prevent it from actually happening. So most Buddhist restaurants in Taiwan specifically cook without garlic and onion because those two things are considered things that you only eat when you're sick. So specifically for anti-inflammatory for garlic and stomach issues, and onion too. So both of those are good for your stomach. And so that's why you'll find a lot of times these spices are used back in the day as a preservative and things like that. Come on in. Alrighty. So let's talk about spices versus herbs. Herbs. Whatever country you're in, apparently in Europe, in England, they say herbs with the H. With the H. And so I say herbs. But pretty much it's just the leafy portion of the plant. So the leaves. Anything that's not a leaf falls into the spice category. So if you're talking dill, cilantro and coriander are the same. If you didn't know that already, coriander is the seed of the cilantro. So if you have people that don't like cilantro, make sure make sure they're okay with coriander too. But you do have, there is a normal, it is normal for people to think that cilantro tastes like soap. So if you have that, it is a hereditary thing. You can build out of it, but there are people who eat cilantro and it tastes completely like soap. And I've met chefs who swear it makes everything taste better, but it doesn't, not for everybody. And then the last part, so you use, for the spices, we have roots, we have berries, we have seeds, flowers, and the kind of spud, like where saffron comes from. Those the little two crocus, the little two things, that is considered a spice too. So saffron's another one, and I'll tell you where to go buy saffron because I'm going to show you what to do to toast your spices. All right. And how to buy and store. I'm going to get in trouble for this. And that is why I have put where I got the source from. And this is from December 7th, 2009. The one thing I'm worried about on there is the garlic in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 weeks. That means whole cloves, not minced. I have told you guys before that you can mince garlic and store it in your refrigerator for up to a week to 10 days. I have modified that time down to 3 to 5 days, and it's because of one company out there. He decided, you know those oil-infused garlics, the garlic-infused olive oils, and somebody got botulism out of it. Garlic has a natural botulism, has the botulism bacteria. If you inhibit oxygen, so if you stop it from getting any oxygen, including using oil to prevent it from getting any oxygen, you are pretty much growing the botulism, but pretty much the botulism thing in there. So you will get sick. People can die from botulism, and that's exactly what happened. It was one guy, though, that sold this garlic infused oil, and now it is across the board. The health department has said you cannot store chopped garlic for more than 3 days. No more. Even if you cover it, even at no amount, you just can't do it anymore. Not in store. The question a lot of people will tell me then, well, how does Costco sell that large jar of pre-minced garlic? Look on the back. The #1 ingredient in there is a citric acid. There's preservatives like crazy in that stuff. I really don't like that stuff. It tastes sour to me. So I say if you use garlic a lot, buy whole cloves, and your best friend is a garlic press. Just go buy yourself one of those French garlic presses and you're completely fine. And use whole cloves. Because I cook so much in here for such large groups, I buy the pre-peeled stuff, but the pre-peeled garlic does not last that long at all. That pre-peeled garlic at most maybe a week, and you're pushing it at a week too. So if you buy the whole heads of garlic, they'll last a lot longer. And then spices whole actually last 1 to 3 years. The one thing I was storing spices in the freezer just to see the difference. There's no difference. Storing it in the freezer versus out in a dark room, shaded, is completely the same. So if you feel like you need to store it in your freezer, go ahead, store it in your freezer, but it's not going to really change anything. What will change is that when you smell something that's frozen versus something that's been out in your pantry, it smells completely different. Spices have oils in them, and that's what you're smelling for. When you've put them in the freezer, it's inhibited those gases pretty much, and so you almost have to re-toast them or let them come to room temperature before you can smell to see if they're actually there. Spice blends, about a year. Make your own spice blends from now. I'm going to show you a garam. I have a really good Cajun one. If you guys want to do a Cajun one, I've got an Old Bay. You can find a spice blend for pretty much anything. And they're very easy to make, and you can just have them sitting in your pantry. Garlic salt is one of the ones that I say make on your own. Granulated garlic is very cheap, and you can control the amount of sodium in your diet then by adding the salt. And then you can add parsley in there. I do Italian seasoning, garlic, and kosher salt. So that's my kind of Italian blend that I like to use. And then the herbs, flaked or crushed, is the ones that don't last as long. The dry stuff. So like, for example, oregano. This guy will come like this. This doesn't last very long. I mean, I would say maybe after you open it, only about a month or two. It'll start losing its flavor really, really fast. So buy the fresh ones. Buy it fresh. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 fresh, 1 this. This is stronger. So only 1 times this, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. Oh, and we all know what the most exclusive or the most expensive herb is, right? Does anybody? Saffron. Yep, saffron. So saffron, best place to buy saffron, Trader Joe's. I don't know. I don't know how they can sell it for that price. If you guys know me and Trader Joe's, we have a love-hate relationship. But saffron is very, very expensive. Each flower only has 2 little things that you pick off to use. There's a couple substitutes for it. If you're using saffron for color and only color and not flavor, don't use saffron, use turmeric. Turmeric will give you that same color effect. The other one though, the cheap man saffron, safflower, yeah, it's the whole thing. They don't separate it out. It's just, and I'll show you what it looks like. It looks very much like saffron, but it doesn't have that strong of a taste. It has a little bit of that hint, but it's definitely not going to be the same as buying saffron. The other place you can buy it at is Wholesome Choice, by the counter. They don't even store it. It's not out in the shelf. It's so expensive. That's why I don't know where Trader Joe's is getting, because they put it on the shelf in a little thing that somebody can sneak in their pocket, I feel like. And so I don't know where they're getting it from. I'm sure it says on there, though. All right. Ooh. And the one place you should never store your spices. So you buy whole spices, they'll last longer. Store in a cool, dry place. Keep them away from moisture, heat, and sunlight. And the other thing is, if you have one of those, say you have a stove just like this, and you've got your spice rack right up here, yeah, it's going to get solid real, real fast. The heat, the moisture from everything that you're cooking will bring condensation into those little canisters, and you'll end up with clumps. The other thing we like to do too is we'll take a jar of whatever spice and spice it right on top of our food while it's steaming. That steam that's coming up is clumping your spices as you're doing this. So from now on, try to measure and then put it in, or if you do this, quickly kind of wipe off the lid and put the lid right back on. Kind of wipe off those little holes areas and put your lid right back on, and you won't get those clumps. Especially with the spice blends, it'll clump really, really easily. Garlic's in there, and salt as soon as it hits water sometimes just kind of clumps together. So be careful with that one. Alrighty, and then the health benefits. I'm sure you guys have heard all about the turmeric, the ginger, oregano. Oregano is very interesting, specifically Mediterranean oregano, Greek oregano. I met a gentleman who swears by it, and he carries a little pouch in his back pocket, dried. Anytime anybody tells him there's something wrong with him, say you go to work one day and you say, oh, I have a headache today. The first thing he does is he grabs his oregano and he gives you a handful of it. You have a stomach ache. Oh, okay, I have some oregano. He swears, he's Greek, and he swears that everything that you have wrong with you can be fixed with oregano. Try it. Yeah, just a little, it really has helped upset stomachs. Ginger, oregano are great for upset stomachs. And the cinnamon is also great just because it's got fiber in it. capsaicin is also another interesting one. There's been a whole bunch of studies on it. So capsaicin is like chili powder and things like that. There have been studies where it suppresses appetite. So they feel like if you eat very, very, very spicy food, it'll suppress your appetite. And there's been studies of this, and there's actually been studies that it burns more calories. The thing is that when you eat something that spicy, your body is hot. It takes energy to cool your body back down to room temperature, or cool it back down. And so that's burning calories. So the spicier the food, the more calories you're burning because you're trying to bring it back down. But this is the one thing that they don't tell you. If you eat spicy food on a normal day basis to begin with, it has absolutely no effect on you. It has to be for somebody that doesn't eat spicy food, and as soon as they eat spicy food, it'll help them reduce their weight, and it'll help them burn calories and things like that. But if you eat spicy food on a normal day basis, forget it. It doesn't really do anything for you. It does help suppress your appetite, though. And that's why a lot of countries like Thailand and India, I don't want to say third world countries, because they're not really third world countries, but countries where food might be scarce. What you'll find is they spice it like crazy. And the goal is that then you don't need to eat as much of it. Because when you've eaten that much spicy food, you sweat, and the last thing you want to do is eat more. And when you sweat like that, you really you can only take a couple more bites, and you eat a lot more starch. So you'll eat a lot more rice, for example, to kind of compensate for that. Alrighty. And then, this is fun. This is from New York Times. And Huffington Post actually did this too. How to use your old spices. Don't throw them away. I like using things. I like you to store things, put things away and stuff like that. Clean your carpet. So you can sprinkle a little bit on your carpet, like whatever, say cinnamon. Cinnamon's a great one. Just sprinkle it on it. It'll suck it right up, and then you've got kind of like that scent on it. Yep. It repels bugs. Cinnamon, oregano, sage, peppermint. Cinnamon for ants is great. I know Irvine gets ant problems, and cinnamon seems to keep them away. But there's two different types of cinnamon out there in the world. There's a Saigon cinnamon, so there's the Vietnamese cinnamon, and then there's the Indian. The Vietnamese cinnamon is significantly stronger, and so it's a lot more potent. So use that stuff to keep these guys away if you want. You can make soap, double time. There's one on there that I didn't put on there because I didn't want to get in trouble from any animal lovers out here. They use capsaicin, chili powder, to keep away rabbits a lot. What that does, though, it does a couple of things. It burns their feet, in other words, yeah. And so I didn't put it up there because I know there's animal lovers in here, but to keep like rodents away, they do that. They use chili powder, and then when it hits the palm of their hand, it not burn. It's like if we were to touch it and touch our eyes or something. It's kind of like that shocking kind of feeling, and it'll keep them away then. And then they'll lick their paws, and then it's even spicier, and they definitely know to stay away from that area then. So you can try that. I don't know about possums, though. Really don't know if that keeps the possums away. I feel like my cat got in a fight with a possum, so nothing keeps the possums away. You can make paint for your kids. Do turmeric, cinnamon, and then you can make finger paint that's actually edible, and like you don't fear that they put it in their mouth and things like that. Black pepper to laundry actually makes it brighter. Whole black peppercorns, not pre-ground ones, whole black peppercorns. It's an old trick it's not an old trick, but it was in organic times. And then deodorize. Make little satchels of herbs and spices, and then you can just keep them in areas that are hot. One of the best real estate tricks, if you didn't know already, is they'll get a sheet pan just like this, put a couple of cloves, cinnamon sticks, and stick it into a warm oven. It makes the house smell so good. It just smells like Christmas, it smells like home, and that's how you sell a house. You put in a couple cookies and get them baking and just make the house smell nice. And so all those things will definitely help bring the people to buy your house. Not that it's hard these days. Alrighty, and then you guys know, how to use old spices. Now, let's get into toasting some spices. So, this is homemade garam, a simple one. There's a couple things that I would normally put in there that is not in there, and I'll tell you what they are. So, we're over here. So if you guys look up here, I have almost everything. Julie Sani is a great Indian chef, specifically a cookbook writer. She was the first Indian chef to write an English cookbook about Indian food. I worked with her, and she has different theories about garam and garam masala. I'm going to use a crepe pan, my super expensive crepe pans. And what it is about toasting. There's only certain spices that you can actually toast. For example, the last thing you want to toast are black peppercorns. They do not toast very well. They end up burning before they toast. What you can toast are things like cumin seeds, which I'm going to add, no oil in there, and coriander. Fenugreek seeds too are great, but you just want a shallow pan. It doesn't, I mean, it can be any pan, just dry. You just want it to be as dry as possible. And what I'm doing is I'm heating the pan up and the spices in there, and what I'm looking for is smoke. At the first sight of smoke, I'm going to pull it off the heat and start tossing. And I'm going to start tossing it, and the residual heat from that pan will continue cooking it. So one of the greatest pans to use for this is actually a cast iron. I know it's very hard to toss with a cast iron, but you can kind of stir it around. But the cast iron retains that heat for you then, so you can really keep toasting with just the residual heat, and you don't have to worry about burning your spices. So I'm just going to spread it out just a little bit. And coriander seeds, cumin seeds are cheaper than the pre-ground stuff. Tastes way better toasted and ground. If you've noticed, all of the spices these days, they're roasting or toasting and putting in jars. You can actually buy what was it that I saw? The roasted ginger powder, roasted garlic powder. McCormick is making it now. So McCormick is going out there and realizing that people like their spices toasted. Like I said, all of these have oils in them, just a little bit, and so that's what you're trying to draw out, because that's where all the flavors are going to be from. And then, the one ingredient that I don't have in here, oh, I can toast my cloves too. Okay, cloves go a long way, so just use a little. And then cinnamon, just a cinnamon stick. And I'm going to lay the cinnamon stick on top of the spices just so that it gets the heat, but it doesn't really get too much heat because that might burn. And then black peppercorns and nutmeg. Nutmeg is the one that you need to buy whole. It is a waste of money to buy it pre-ground because it tastes like absolutely nothing, and this thing is way cheaper. So just go with a microplane. I like microplanes because you get it finer, but I just want to show you that you can just use a regular grater too. You just get bigger, not necessarily huge pieces, but a little bit larger pieces. And then, it smells so good. And then I'll leave that up there so that you guys can smell it. And the one, oh, so it's smoking. So as soon as it starts smoking, pick it up and toss. This is a crepe pan, if you can't tell. So I'm just going to let that extra, I'm just doing this so that it doesn't get burnt. And the other way that you can tell is coriander seeds are kind of like popcorn. It'll start kind of popping up at you. And that's how you know that there's enough heat on that guy. So I'm just going to let that cool down. And then you get your coffee grinder. And I wanted to show you one last thing that usually goes in there. I take it out because it's very frustrating to do, and it's cardamom. Cardamom is in the family of the black peppercorn, if you didn't know. The French actually had, there's a cousin of the cardamom, I can't remember what it's called, but the French actually used it in the 60s as a substitute for peppercorns because of its flavor, and it's in the same family as this guy. Whenever you read a recipe that calls for cardamom, they don't mean these. It doesn't mean this. It means for you to do this. You need to take them out. That's why I don't add cardamom in a lot of stuff. I'll do it right here. You open it up, and inside there's these seeds. And this is cardamom, not this. So when you make like chai or something, you can use this, that's fine. But when you're actually trying to make a spice and you're using the most important part, this is kind of like the outside of a banana. It's like, do you really want the banana peel, or you don't need it. It's just going to get in the way of everything. So you have to take each little one You break it open and you take out these little seeds and then you toast them with everything else and then you add it in. It does make a world of difference though, adding cardamom and stuff. There are companies that make the little packages and it is taken out already for you. So you can buy it, but it's very pricey too. So you and I think it's desiccated, D-E-S-S-I-C-A-T-E-D, cardamom. And it means that it's been the seeds have been taken out of it already for you. And then we've got black peppercorn. I specifically didn't use whole because I want to show you something. A lot of us like buying black peppercorn already pre-ground, just like this. That's fine. If you like it, go for it. I'm a big on the three color, like the tricolor peppers, and so don't use the 3-color peppers in Indian cuisine though. Use whole black peppercorns. But I wanted to show you this. This is considered a good brand, and the reason why it's good is because of the amount of white that you see in there. When you buy pre-ground black peppercorn, look for white flecks. You don't want majority black, you want white flecks, because what that means is they're using whole black peppercorns. There are companies out there that use hollow peppercorns, and hollow peppercorns are just black. And they're hollow and have no flavor. The flavor comes from that white part of it. And so look for more white in your pre-ground stuff and it'll taste a lot better. And so when you get home, all you would do is then take this and put it into your coffee grinder and let it grind. I can't find my lid right now, as I would show you, but I will look if I can find it later. And you would just grind it in there. Now to clean this guy out, handful of white rice. Just a handful of white rice, let it go in there. It'll pick up all that extra stuff and you can put your coffee back in there too. So you only need one. And a good place to buy it would be, since you guys have a Walmart around here now, Walmart is probably the cheapest place to buy a coffee grinder, or Target. They're probably about the same price. All right, so now I got a couple more things to talk about and then we'll get cooking. If I can find it right here. There we go. Okay, so complementary herbs and spices. These are the things that you can mix together. These are spices that normally go together. So for example, your sweet would be the one that you do for pumpkin, like pumpkin spice. So like allspice, anise, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg. Your spicy ones are cinnamon, ginger, black pepper, and star anise again. And so you can kind of go through there and match them up. Therefore, if you wanted to make a pungent, spicy food, pick some from those two categories. And then you'll get kind of that umami flavor based off of these kind of spices and herbs and what they can give you. Herbal, basil, marjoram, rosemary, thyme. I love dill. I know a lot of people don't like dill. Dill is amazing, I find. I know I love dill. A lot of people say they don't eat salmon anymore because they don't like dill. It's like, no, stop, eat your dill. Dill is nice and cheap. And the other one that you guys have a lot of locally that is usually hard to get, tarragon. Tarragon is actually quite pricey. We get it pretty cheap around here just because of the amount of like the Persian community around here and how much they use it. So let me tell you what, a bunch of tarragon it's not cheap. It's about over $1 maybe. But nobody ever uses all that tarragon. Most people don't. So there's a couple things that you can do with spices, or not spices, but herbs that you don't use anymore. Start sticking them into vinegar. Vinegar is a great way. So infuse your vinegars with these herbs. They don't have the botulism thing that the garlic does, but start putting them in there. The other thing is vanilla. Vanilla pods, like the whole vanilla, gorgeous vanilla pods. I don't know why those things are so expensive and people buy them, and I cringe every time. So what you do is you take those vanilla pods after you've scraped them and you've used every last drop of it. Put it back into a container of vanilla. Store it in your vanilla. It'll just make your vanilla taste that much better because it's actually something real, as opposed to like the fake stuff that you would normally get. And the last one I'll tell you about is celery. Celery seeds are a natural salt. It has a natural salt flavor to it. So if you don't mind the taste of celery, some people hate. It's like when I do paleo, people don't like cauliflower, so I have no substitute for them for like rice. But the substitute for salt is celery seeds or celery salt that doesn't have salt in it. Celery has a natural kind of sodium taste to it. I'll leave some out here so that you guys can kind of taste it. It's amazing, but there is still that hint of celery, so if you don't like the taste of celery, it's hard. It's very hard. Seaweed, there's a lot of great seaweed extracts and things like that that you can use for salt nowadays. But bouquet garni is the most common one that you'll find in French cuisine. So that's what they put in every soup. Tie it together, stick it in a soup, and you're ready to go. Alrighty. And then production. I thought this was very interesting. Look at how much India does. That is where we get most of our spices from. Over 70% of our spices around the world are coming from India. And I lived in India for about a month, a little over a month, and you would go into these markets and it would just be bags, like up to your height, filled with seeds and endless amounts of it, and you just wonder, really, you can use all of that? And they do. They sell it to everybody else, and so the world uses all these spices, and the demand is growing. The demand is really, really growing higher and higher as we keep cooking on our own. It's pretty interesting, but India definitely produces a lot of our spices. And then this is from Wikipedia. I thought you might be interested in it, but just regional spice mixtures. It's funny how in each region they have their own kind of mix. The one that we are doing today is the Ras El Hanout, the North Africa one. And then, but just kind of look through there, and it's actually really interesting what you can find. The cha masala is completely different from a garam masala. Jerk spices are great. Mixed spice, Old Bay. Old Bay seasoning, you can find really good recipes online for Za'atar is the one that I can't say it right. I know I'm butchering some of these. But that's the one that you find most of the time around here too. In a lot of the Persian stores, restaurants, things like that. And I love harissa. If you've never had harissa before, harissa is actually this. Oops. Nope, I thought I had a can of it. It comes in like a paste form almost. Very, very spicy. Most of these ones that are from Asia, or yeah, more of the Asian ones and the North African ones will be very, very spicy. So be careful when you use these. Yeah. Alrighty, get to cooking. So, this is the rice recipe. Where'd I put all my stuff? Where is it? Oh, it's right in front of me. Okay, so I use basmati. I use basmati rice today. Basmati is more expensive than jasmine rice is. Basmati is very, very pricey. And so I say don't buy the brown version. Don't buy brown basmati, don't buy brown jasmine, and the only brown you should be buying is brown organic. Don't buy, if you think you're doing your body well by eating brown rice, it's not as healthy as you think, mainly because it's not organic. The ground, the soil that it's grown in is very contaminated with pesticides that it goes straight into the actual grain anyways. And because you're leaving the bran on the rice, you're eating the most pesticide-filled part of that brown rice. So when you go to restaurants like a veggie grill and they want to charge you more for brown rice, just say yes to the white rice instead, because that brown rice has a lot more carcinogens in them. There have been studies that they've done where it doesn't matter. You better be growing it on fresh soil that's never touched pesticides before if you think that you're growing organic produce. They're running into this problem now because you can make a farm that says it wasn't organic all of a sudden becomes organic. You want to look through it. You want to do the research on that farm because years and years of pesticide use just go straight into the ground, into the water source, the area around there. You need to look at neighbors. I don't want you paying double for something that really isn't real. So if a neighbor isn't organic and you guys share the same water, for all you know, you're getting pesticide water into your produce that you think is organic. So it's very hard to keep organic. They're trying hard, but I just don't, brown rice is one of those that I tell people, you can save the money and just eat white rice. But if you like the taste of brown rice, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Try things like barley maybe instead, other whole grains that aren't rice related or in that category. So I'm going to get myself a pot, and then I have onion and I have oil. So I'm going to heat up my oil first, and I'm going to toast my spices, and I'm going to cook my onion and my garlic. And so I'm going to get that ready. I forgot that I was actually going to chop today. So quick. I know you guys, most of you have seen me do this, but I've been told not to correct people on their knife holding. My students told me to stop correcting because I hold my blade. So that's all I'm going to say now. I'm not going to tell you what you do is wrong anymore because it seems as though if I tell you you're doing something wrong, you just tend to do it more. This is the one. Whenever I tell people not to do this, they do this. And so I'm stopping. I'm not going to tell you not to do it, and I'm just going to tell you what to do, and that is hold the blade of the knife. Don't hold the handle. The handle is there just because to gauge it, but you want to hold the blade. You almost want to do this. That way you have complete control. I'm just going to cut the onion in half and then peel. If you feel like your knife is not sharp, Bristol Farms will sharpen it for you for free. It's at Newport Beach next to Sur La Table. And I had a gentleman who went about a week ago, and they are still doing it for free. And he did it in 5 minutes and brought it right back out for him, brand new and sharpened. So go there. The other thing is that when you have a knife that you feel like isn't sharp, don't cut. Start sawing back and forth. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to destroy your food if you just think that you can chop down. No. Saw. So my knife is sharp, but I'm still going to do a little bit. I can feel the resistance, and so I cut off that end, and I'm going to keep the root intact, and then I'm going to make cuts all over the top, just like that. And then go in if you dare, and again, because I know my knife isn't as sharp as it should be, I'm going to saw it in. And then claw my fingers together and then push away. I always say push away, but again, it's whatever makes you comfortable. I'm going to add that straight in here, and then I'm going to turn on the flame. I'm going to create a barrier now. I'm using the onions as a barrier between my onion and garlic because I want a flavor of garlic. And since I'm not going to use that much, I am going to use a whole head. Press down, take off the root, and peel. So just one press will do it. Use your body weight. And sometimes you don't even need to do that. And just go straight in. Yay. Okay. And then mince. Now before I mince, I'm going to add a little bit of salt right on top of it. You would think that's salt, but it's not. I can feel it in my fingers. I was like, that's sugar. That's not salt. I was like, wait a second. Thank God I cook for a living. Else I would have put sugar right on that. Sugar has that same effect though. But what it is if you ever look at sugar and salt, they're like little knives. And so you can go back in, and if you're chopping on top of the little knives, you're doing double the amount of work and getting your salt to taste like garlic too. So I'm just going in there and I'm going to chop it up. And then use the back of my knife to scrape. Don't use this side because that's going to just damage your knife. And if you feel like it, you can use like a scraper or something like that and help yourself. All right, so that's going to go in. Now, like I said, I do a lot of I've done some Indian classes in here, so I make my own. I made this with the exact same things that you guys had. I added saffron in this, and that's what there was saffron in your rice today. So I'm going to add a little bit of this inside. And this is just the garam masala mix. Whenever you have any kind of spices, curries, jerk seasoning, this, Cajun spices, always cook it in a little oil. The oil will brighten up the flavor. A lot of people will just add curry powder into something like a soup and just pour them. You can't do that. Any spice blend should be toasted with a little bit of oil before adding it in, because there's oil inside those spices as well, and you really want to draw out those flavors. Yeah?
I have a question.
Go for it.
About garlic.
Uh-huh.
Do you recommend using or not using a garlic press?
I do recommend. I do definitely. Nope. I don't feel like it does. There's some people who feel like it actually makes it stronger doing it that way, so you could probably use less if you do feel that way. But I definitely love my garlic press. I just wish they had a garlic press where you could take the skin out just a little bit easier than it makes it. They do. Which one? The Xylus? Is it the one where you press on the other side?
You open it up.
Yeah.
And then you go like
Yeah. But then it does. See, mine never does it. Mine, I like the one that I have, but the peel, if I'm doing a lot, sometimes I won't take off that hard end, and then it just jams in there, and then forget it. It takes a while. Then I have to soak. Yeah, then you definitely. So that's why if you cook for a large group, you can just use your food processor, like I did today. So now that's toasted up. I'm gonna add in my rice. And you have to wash your rice. Have to. Specifically white, brown, all those. And then I'm gonna kind of toast up my rice. This is where you really get the flavors. So if you were making this a traditional Indian dish, you would use butter or ghee. You would definitely want to use those just to get that flavor going. And then I've got my veggie stock. Now, your recipe makes it really easy for you because all you're going to do now is you're going to bring this up to a boil, and you can keep it on the stove with the lid on, or you can chuck it into your oven. You can make your rice in your oven. That's why I wrote it this way for you, because I want you to know that you can make your rice in your oven just as easily as you can make it on your stove. There's some times when we are running out of stove space, and the last thing you want is just to have rice cooking on your stove when you actually need that space to be making something. So go ahead and you can put it in your oven, and then right before it comes out of the oven, you can stir in your peas and then bake it another 5 minutes if they're really cold or something like that. But you can stir in some peas and make it extra good for you then. And that's it. So really easy. I've got that going. Okay. Coffee cookies. This is another interesting one. So, I didn't write, I missed on the cloves on, oh no, I got it on there, never mind. So we made this cookie, and I thought it was a little too spiced for you, so I made a glaze to go on top. You don't have to add that icing if you don't want to, but you can. It just makes it cuts through that spiciness, and some people will need that sweetness because it's not a sweet cookie to begin with. I'm melting the butter, sorry. All right. So if you ever have a recipe that calls for coffee or anything like that, you want to dissolve it. You can dissolve it in hot water. You can dissolve it in hot water, hot milk, hot butter is another option. So I'm just going to put that straight in there. It's the same with gelatin. If you ever get recipes that call for gelatin, you have to dissolve it before you actually use it. Else it'll go absolutely nowhere. So I'm just going to let that sit to the side. And it will get clumpy sometimes, and so just make sure you go in there and kind of break up the large clumps. And if they don't break up, just take them out. And then I've got whole wheat flour. 1 egg, some cinnamon that I'm going to add in, cloves, ginger, your baking soda, just like that. And then over here I've got my maple syrup. So maple syrup is a great substitute for people who don't use that much sugar to begin with. It does still have sugar, but it's a natural sugar. So a lot of people like going for it. Or coconut sugar is the other one that a lot of people like using now. And then vanilla.
Soda or powder?
Baking soda. Did I say it? No, baking powder. Powder. Yeah, it's powder. I'm wondering why it's powder as opposed to soda. Oh no, there's no acid in there, that's why. Alrighty, and 1 egg. Just like that. And I'm gonna whisk. Woo! Aww. Brand new chef coat just got, and I just made it real. I wanna whisk this well, and then I'm gonna add in my butter and my coffee and whisk this well. This is the only time you get to actually whisk and make sure everything gets broken up, because I don't want you over mixing that one. I see a clump. So, because one of the things about whole wheat flour is that it's kind of it has a funky taste to some people. And so when you do this, you don't want to activate the glutens. I'm just mixing this so that I get the cinnamon and all those spices evenly distributed, and you can use a whisk for that. Now I'm going to dump this in, and I'm just going to gently stir. Just to stir so that I feel like the batter is completely coated with the mixture. I'm not going to beat it though. I'm just slowly kind of folding it in with a wooden spoon. You don't have to be as gentle as if you were making like a meringue, but once you get to this point, start realizing that you're almost there. So once it feels like it's kind of moist, just like that. This is a wet dough, because that is why you're going to take this and you're going to chuck it in your refrigerator or freezer If you want, you can do it in your freezer in half the amount of time. The recipe says in your refrigerator for 30 minutes. But you can definitely go in there and put it in your freezer, which is what I'm going to do. And then when you're ready to bake them, just get a parchment sheet out and line it, and then make your cookies. And it won't fit in there. I'm just going to put it inside. Last one, and then I'll let you go. Okay, so ground turkey, I'm using ground chicken. Great barbecuing weekend for everybody. If you have a food processor at home, do not be buying ground meat this weekend. This week is a scary week to be buying ground meat, if you guys don't know already. It's going to be one of the highest times or highest seasons for the use of ground beef, just because of Memorial Day. People like buying ground meat for patties. And this is the time of year when things get contaminated really, really fast because of the heat and as well as the demand. So what I say is start grinding your own meat. And a lot of people are like, I'm not going to buy another $300 attachment for a $300 machine. That's dumb. If you have a food processor, just use your food processor. Cut your meat into chunks, like little cubes. Well, I already did it. Into little cubes, and then stick it in your freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes, just so that it kind of gets hard, but not super hard. And then chuck it in your food processor and pulse it. Pulse it a couple of times, and then add your fat into that. So you can use bacon fat, you can use parts of, like say you have a piece of ribeye that has, so start collecting your ribeye trimmings maybe, like if you've got a nice fatty piece of ribeye and it's got that piece of fat, start collecting that and put it in your freezer, and then you can add it into your burgers every time. I like using bacon the most, but another substitute is you can also use sausage meats, because sausage usually has a lot of fat inside of it. There you go. Alrighty, so I just did that. I had chicken, you guys had turkey, but I had some chicken breast, and so I just ground that up, and then there's a little bit of ketchup. Yes, this does call for ketchup. And I'm gonna say why. The reason why it calls for ketchup is ketchup has a couple of things in it that are a lot of work to get to, and so why not just use it? And you can use organic, you can use any kind, but it's mainly the sugar content and the vinegar and the salt content. So you don't add as much salt into this because you're gonna add this inside. And then you've got all these great spices that you're gonna add too. So I've got mustard, curry, oregano, ground coriander, ground cumin, oregano, cayenne, smoked paprika, garlic salt, and garlic powder. So it is a lot. This is a lot to be having in your pantry, I understand. But just dump that all in, and when you make this, you'll be like, wow, that's a lot of spices to add into something that, with so little amount of meat. It is a lot of spice. And then you're just gonna mix that up. And then add in, you can add in the 1 egg. This is significantly less than you guys made, so that I made for you, so I'm not gonna add in the 1 egg. And then, meatball. It'll be very, very, very dry, especially if you use like sirloin or something like that. It's so dry to the point where if you make something that's this big, it'll shrink to this big. It'll almost reduce in size by quite a lot and just be extra dry on the edges. Just adding a little bit of fat will be that much healthier for you in the sense that you just don't eat as much of it, but you'll be happier with the results of it. I always say it that way. It's almost like a portion control thing. That's why no other country in the world wants our meat. We are the only ones that'll eat our meat. No other country in the world will buy our meat, if you didn't know. Smithfield Farms pork tried to get China to start buying their pork, and they said, we're not buying your stuff. If China doesn't want to buy your pork, there's definitely something wrong, because it's bad. And I'll be honest with that, with the pork in the U.S. We like lean pork here. The rest of the world, 99.99% of the rest of the world will not eat lean pork. They will not eat lean meat because fat is flavor and meat is expensive. So why are you paying so much for something that has so little fat and therefore no flavor? And so that's the rest of the world, including Europe, even the Australians. Australian beef is actually one of the best beef out there. Asia Asia buys more Australian beef than American beef right now to sell for a higher price. The cheap beef is American beef. There are advertisements that say we don't serve American beef. And so Smithfield Farms, you know what they did? They went to China and opened up a farm. They just opened a farm, Smithfield, up in China, because nobody will buy it unless they're producing it from there. They won't buy it if it's being produced here. It's really interesting. Not only that, the amount of antibiotics and stuff that we give our animals is not allowed in any other world. Like, we go excessive and beyond with the amount of, I guess antibiotics is the easiest way to generalize all the things that we do to our animals. Yeah, and so I don't want to say genetically modify, but we give our animals certain things to make them grow certain things bigger and grow certain things smaller, whereas an animal is just supposed to grow the way it's supposed to grow. So the main thing are like chicken and chicken breasts are huge. China for a while believed that KFC had chickens that grew 6 wings because they couldn't believe that there were so many wings that you could actually sell. So there was an article that was published that actually said that KFC had chicken that had 6 wings on it. And they believed it, and it brought KFC down for a while in China, that people were not going to eat KFC because they believed that these chickens had 6 wings on them. And they finally came out and was like, no, that's not true. They don't have 6 wings, but they definitely do have breasts that nearly fall to the ground. They can't stand up. So, I mean, the one thing you can do is when you go to the difference between organic and non-organic and free range and all of that. I love Costco, but Costco also sells those whole chicken, 3 chickens in a bag, right? 2? Oh, it's only 2. Next time, take those chickens both out at the same time and look at them. There are going to be broken bones or wings in at least one of them. And that's how that chicken is being handled. And so that's how you know how cruel we can be with animals, because you're already killing it. But why does it have a broken wing? Why is the question. And so that's what people are starting to realize. They're taking these chickens out and they're not normal. They're not looking normal anymore. And they've got bruises. The bruising effect is huge right now in a lot of the chickens. And so it's scary, but I don't want you to stop eating. But I could make you stop eating with all the things that I know. I still eat though, so don't worry. So I've got that in there, and then I'm going to add onion and garlic in here. But you guys saw me chop that up, and then you're going to just add sauce. Oops, so you're going to add tomato sauce in there, as well as some toasted coriander and cumin. And then you're going to throw in some stock and then some mint. And then you're just going to cook all your meatballs in that sauce once it's done. But you can store it, you can definitely bake your meatballs. And if you're a big meatball maker, oh no, they were making cookies. Hands, when you're making meatballs, get a bowl of hot water or cold water, either one, but it has to be an extreme. And then just dip your hands, dry them off, and then roll. You'll find that it's a lot easier to roll when your hands are wet, for the cookies too. So you can drop the cookies or you can roll them, but get your hands just a little damp before you start rolling it, and it'll be a lot easier. Because there's a lot of fat in not a lot, but there's fat in these meatballs, and what happens is that fat and the cold of your hand or whatever will kind of come together and make an easier meatball for you. But that's it. Come up and ask questions if you have any. Thank you guys for coming out, and grab any extra food you might want. Thank you.